Good morning, everyone. I bow to you and invite you to bring your Buddha nature to the forefront of your consciousness. Today's Dharma talk is about why we meditate. Why do we spend hours and hours sitting doing nothing? It's interesting, from the time that I started meditating to now, the idea of meditation has really taken off here in this country. When I started meditating every day in the 90s, it was an odd thing to do. It's like, I remember having, if I was going to sit in a park in meditation, we had little tricks that we would do. You get a book, and you leave the book open on your lap, and you've got your sunglasses on and your headphones in, and you just sit. And you could meditate, and nobody would look at you weird or throw any weird energy at you. One time, I was driving across country, and I stopped in Zion National Park, and I found this little trail that was a little overgrown. I thought, great, and I climbed up on top of this boulder, had this amazing meditation. It was just so much light. And then I felt somebody looking at me, and I opened my eyes, and this couple had come out of the woods, and I don't know what they saw, but the woman just was really frightened looking. She was very scared. And so I just looked at her and said, "Oh, hello." And she turned around and ran, and her boyfriend or husband, whoever it was, ran after her. So seeing, a person meditating in the wild was once a frightening thing. So now it's so common. You can even download a app on your phone to help you meditate. And everybody is talking about meditation. It's this buzzword that's happened. So I think it's important to consider, why do we meditate? Because there are different types of meditation, but I think it even goes deeper than that. There's things that I would not call meditation that people call meditation now. So the term itself is changing as it does in language. Language evolves, understandings evolve. So many people may say they meditate, but when they describe to me what they're actually doing, is they're just relaxing. They're going through some relaxation exercises. And that's wonderful. I think that's important for people to do. We need more relaxation. This world is amped up to 100, and it's only going to get more and more intense. So being able to unplug and calm our nervous system down is a very important skill. But when it comes to terms like meditation, I guess you could say I'm a traditionalist. My teacher was this completely radical Mahasuddha that on the surface just seemed out there to a lot of people. But if you actually study his teachings and you actually pay attention, he's a very, very traditional Buddhist teacher. He just didn't take any of the, he did everything American style, because he was American, so of course. So that's what we do here too at Dharma Center of Trikaya Buddhism. We are teaching American Buddhism. So why we meditate as Trikaya Buddhists is to discover Anatta, to discover no self. We have this notion that happens when we're born, sometimes even before we're born, when we're still in the womb, where this concept of being someone is pressed upon us. And there's really no way to get away from that, because we're in the relative world. So if we're interacting in the relative world, then we have to be someone. There has to be some kind of definition, and that occurs with or without our permission, simply by virtue of being in a relational world. But what happens is we start to believe the story. So we're told what we should be or who we should be. We're given a definition of ourselves as we grow up. First from our parents or caregivers, and then from our educators, and then from our friends. And so we're constantly being bombarded with definitions of this is who you are. This is how you are. This is how the world is, and this is how you fit into it. And naturally, this leads us into a little bit of despair, because at our deepest, innermost knowing, we know that we're no one. We know that there is no self that's static and stationary. This is an inherent knowledge. But we forget. We get caught up in the mind trip of everyone around us. And we go on this quest of trying to figure out where it is I belong. Where do I belong? How do I fit in? And many times we get stuck because we have accumulated this definition of self that's been given to us by all of these different people. And it may have been useful at certain points, so we buy into it. And say, when you're in a classroom trying to learn mathematics, it's helpful to take on the persona of a student interested in mathematics. Because then that way you can focus your attention and become that person and get really, really good at mathematics. But if you think that's all you are, there's tremendous suffering, because there's this whole other infinite part of your being waiting to be expressed, just waiting to be felt and experienced. So why we meditate is to melt away all of these definitions, all of these stories and structures that hold us into a specific sense of self. In other words, so we can experience Anatta, so we can let go and see what that experience of being no one is like. And that occurs in this silence of meditation. So when we meditate together, I'm showing you that I am no one. And then that it gives you something to key into and experience for yourself. And then you realize that, oh wow, I'm no one too. And when we start to grasp that, the first time we do, it can be really uncomfortable, because there's this feeling of, holy crap, I'm no one. Now what do I do? How do I interact with anything? How do I function? And so immediately we scramble for any definition that's like handy, and we just become that, even if it's doesn't fit very well. It's as if we have an experience in meditation where we recognize Anatta, and then as soon as we come out of the meditation we feel naked, and so we reach for the first set of clothes we find, and even if they don't fit we try to squish them on, and then they're very uncomfortable and they don't quite work, and it can spin us out in very destructive ways. So this is why it's very helpful to actually have a group to meditate with, to have a teacher that can help you understand what's happening if you're actually meditating and not just doing relaxation. Which again, relaxation is important. You should take time to do that every day. So we meditate and we enter into this silence. We discover we are no one. Sometimes it lasts for only a moment. There's just this little tiny flash. And then that self-protective mechanism kicks in. Because, as I said, we exist in bodies in this relative world, and so we need some kind of self-definition. But here's the secret, is you get to pick what that definition is. Everything is open to you. Of course, you need to abide by the rules of the relative world in which you live. So if you want to be a brain surgeon, you're not going to meditate, completely dissolve into Anatta, and then stand up and then walk into a hospital and say, okay, give me a scalpel or give me a drill. That's unlikely to happen. Hopefully. You never know. But if that is something that you aspire to experience as a self, then you can look at all the steps involved in becoming that self. And we do this continually. This is a great deal of fun on this particular pathway, is we try on different personas, different selves, different ways of being. And when I met my teacher, I was studying philosophy and sociology, and then he was like, do computer science. I'm like, no, I'm a writer, I'm not going to do that. I was like, no, go do computer science. And I did, and it was magnificent because it allowed me to shift my being so radically that it allowed me to realize that, I don't have to be just one thing. And then having that imprint in my mind comes in handy. Like this past week, I've been moving our websites over to a new hosting company. So I've been learning these past 2 weeks all about WordPress and how the internet works with different servers and domains and all of that. It's been fascinating. But if I didn't have that mental flexibility, I would have to pay somebody to do that for us, and it may or may not work. Like right now, 2 of my websites are broken. So they're not, nobody knows they're broken because I haven't gone live yet with them. But that's just a little benefit, an external benefit. But the internal benefit, when we allow ourselves to try on all these different selves, is it opens up different planes of awareness within our own mind. It makes the mind more flexible. It makes us more capable of navigating higher and more intense realms of being. And it helps us, most of all, remember that ultimately we're no one. There's no self. There is some kind of organizing principle in our being. Sometimes we refer to this as our soul, or the jiva, or the atman. This organizing principle, I've heard it referred to as the Dharma element in some Tibetan works. I like that one. That's probably my favorite, the Dharma element. And that is this organizing principle, or mind stream, I've heard it referred to as well, is what moves from lifetime to lifetime. This is how we have memories of previous bodies, previous experiences. But the confusion happens is because we recognize that there's some kind of organizing principle that is on this journey through multiple incarnations. And of course, our sense of self grabs a hold of that and says, oh, well then this is myself, this is my soul, this is me. And we add on a personality and we make these assumptions that who I am in this lifetime is who I was in my other lifetimes. And that's not accurate at all. Your personality is just a set of clothing. It's just a outer covering that's created out of convenience so we can interact with one another, so we can interact with the physicality of existence. So really chew on this, consider this, because it will help you start to notice where this sense of self starts to hijack you. There might be something that you're interested in experiencing, something brand new. Maybe there's a place that you want to travel to, or a new career that you're curious about. What winds up getting in the way are these stories, these structures, these personas. And they tell us that, oh, I could never do that. And it's true, you could never do that. But you can become one who can do that. Because you are not a fixed being. You're no one. Just as I am no one. So this is why we meditate. Because it allows us to melt away all of this binding. It starts to illuminate these parts of us that we're very, very attached to. And as we practice our mindfulness, when we're not on the meditation cushion, when we have an inspiration to do or experience something, and then immediately something else comes up and says, oh wait, no, you can't do that. That's a wonderful message for us, because that's when we can see that, oh, that's where I'm getting stuck. What is it that I'm clinging to? What is it that I'm identifying with? And we can examine that from all the different angles, drive ourselves completely nuts. Or we can meditate. We can just stop and enter into the pure and perfect silence of our being and let that inner light just burn away all of these structures, and we rest in our inner being of Anatta, of no self, of just pure and perfect spaciousness and light. And we get to know the freedom of that. And then when we stand up from our meditation cushion, we can look at the life that our body and mind are living and see where is it holding us back? Where are we getting caught in patterns that don't serve us, that restrict us from experience the highest and brightest light available? Sometimes there's very practical things to do. Like if your house is an absolute disaster and you can't find anything, so every time you need to pull out a pair of socks, you have to stop and reformat your being to where you were when you last did laundry and become that person and say, where did they put the socks? And then you can find your socks. But instead, if you take the time and say, okay, I'm going to become an organized person, and you organize your home, that way, no matter who walks in, they can open a couple drawers and right away, oh, here's the socks. Here's where this person keeps their socks. And it's very smooth and very easy, and you didn't have to become that other person. You can remain whoever you are now. So that's just one way we can start to set up our life. The same with our income streams, with our expenses, with everything that we need to function in a relative world. We can start to build systems that run with very little friction. And this is a wonderful gift to your future selves. Because then when you get up from the meditation cushion and you're completely fluid, you can just ask, oh, who am I today? And watch what unfolds and be surprised. A question on YouTube. I'm having trouble with love. I love with attachment, and sometimes my heart gets broken. How can I love more and without attachment? That is a great question. Which feeds into this idea of Anatta. Because oftentimes when we love someone, when we fall in love, we enter into a mutual description of each other. We say, okay, this is who you are, this is who I am, and we are in love. And then as long as we both play those roles, everything's copacetic. But then one person starts to change and grow as we do. We always are growing and shifting. And all of a sudden, the other person gets uncomfortable with that and says, wait a minute. You're supposed to be this definition. And then it gets messy because that wasn't really love, was it? it was a business arrangement, to put it crassly. It was an agreement of, okay, you be this person, I'll be this person, and then we'll have this relationship, and then we'll have these experiences together, and we'll call it love. But love is so powerful. If we can let go of our need for our love to be reciprocated in a particular way, we start to move into unconditional love. And this is tricky because we still need boundaries to protect ourselves. We still need to relate to others and allow them and recognize where someone else is in their life. So what we have to do, from my perception, is begin with unconditional love for ourselves and our own being. And that can be hard for people, especially because we've been given this story that if we love ourselves, we're somehow being selfish. And there is a selfish type of self-love that gets promoted. We see it in advertising a lot, where, the part that says, screw everybody else, I'm just going to look out for number one. That's not what I'm talking about. It's taking this immense love, this immense compassion, and recognizing where this body-mind structure is. Where are the boundaries and limits of our own being? And they change. Last week I talked about impeccability. So there is a way to expand and grow these borders. But that's the first step, is recognizing, where is my capabilities? This is humility, right? And we love ourselves unconditionally with those boundaries in mind. Because yes, in meditation we'll have these experiences of anatta, of no self, and come out completely fluid. And then we start interacting with our world. And at that point is where we start to discover where these boundaries are, what structures remain. And if we can start to love those, appreciate them, understand them with compassion, then we start to build unconditional love for our own being. And at that point, once we start to become familiar with what that feels like, then we can start to share that with other people. And this beautiful thing happens when we do this. When we love somebody unconditionally, we give them space to be whoever and whatever they are in that particular moment. We take that agreement that we had before of, you're going to be that type of person and I'm going to be this type of person, and we rip it up and throw it out the window. And we say, oh, this is who you are today, and I love you. And then at the same time, we love ourselves enough to recognize that there will be moments where they are going on a certain path or a certain adventure that is inappropriate for us. And we say, well, no, I'm not going to go do that. I'm not going to have that experience with you. But if you want to have that experience, I love you, and you go have that experience. And that might change the nature of our relationship. But there's no heartbreak when we do that, because we still love the person. We just recognize that we love ourselves enough to do what we need to do and treat ourselves with respect and trust, which in turn allows us to treat other people with love and respect and trust. But again, all of this understanding, this view, begins with really understanding what anatta means, this no self. And that it's not just me, not just I have no self, but there is no self. So even as I look at all of you as individual body-mind structures, these organizing principles, these Dharma elements that are here, I see non-self. I see anatta. So in my mind, I don't fix you in any particular way. Every time I see you, even those that have been coming for 20 years, you're still brand new to me every time. And it's very exciting. So that can be another mindfulness game that we play that will also help you cultivate the sense of unconditional love, is to recognize that every time you see someone, you are seeing them for the first time. You have never met them before. They are brand new because you are brand new. And it's an opportunity to discover together whether or not you're compatible in this moment, whether or not you're going to have adventures, what you can learn from each other. It makes life very, very exciting. So, good question. So definitely contemplate this in the coming weeks. Ask yourself, why do I meditate? Consider, what is this anatta? What is this non-self? What does that mean? And to just let your mind chew on that, see where it takes you. So we're going to do some meditation now, and for those of you on YouTube, I'm not able to play the music, so it will be silent, but we will be here, and then if there's any questions afterwards, I can attempt to answer them. So sit up. If you're on YouTube, you can just either put your own music on or just meditate in silence. So sit up nice and straight. We'll begin on the navel center. Then we'll move up to the heart center, and then the third eye. So here at Dharma Center, I'll play some music. I'll play 3 songs. So we'll do navel center, heart center, then third eye. So there's a question in the chat of how can we change our perception of what it means to be loved by someone else? We change our perception by changing ourselves. So we enter into the silence and stillness of meditation. We let all of these perceptions fall away. And then when we get up from our cushion, we have a decision to make. We can continue to act in the ways that we have in the past. We can keep following the same patterns over and over again. Or we can greet the moment as something brand new. We can start to notice when old habitual patterns start to arise. When we have that longing of, oh, I want them to look at me this way so I feel loved. We can catch ourselves and say, well, wait a minute, what is it that I am seeking from the other that I am not giving to myself? Because we are whole and complete beings in and of ourselves, yet here we are in this relative world, which means that we are intimately interconnected with everything else. And this is the paradox that we have to resolve. This is the struggle of our mind. This is the game that we play on the spiritual path of reconciling the finite and the infinite. So in these more practical terms of playing with perception is to just start by recognizing that you are not your perception. Perception is like a pair of sunglasses that we put on. You know, when we walk outside and the sun is shining and it's super bright and it's blinding and we can't really function because the light is too bright, so then we can put our sunglasses on and now all of a sudden everything looks different. Depending on the type of sunglasses that we put on, it might just be a little bit shaded and we can see things a little more, the shapes of things because the sun's not so glaring. Other times we might put on really dark sunglasses and now the world actually looks darker. I have those rose-colored ones too. They make everything pink. And we do this with our mind. I'll talk more about perception in another class because we're out of time today. But for now, observe how your thoughts are affecting your perception. Observe how your projections onto another person color your interaction. And challenge yourself to see if when you interact with somebody, can you see them as somebody brand new? Can you see them as a question mark and curiosity? Now, that doesn't mean that you won't immediately recognize red flags that come up. Because again, this is a interactive process. But then the question is this red flag coming up, this warning signal about this person appearing because I'm projecting something from my past on them? Or is it something they're doing actually right now that's setting off my radar? And that, is where we kind of fine tune our perception, our ability to perceive in the moment versus perceiving through the filter of our past experiences. So again, I'll talk more about this in detail another time, but that's something to play with right now and see where that takes you. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for joining me online. Thank you for joining me in person.